Well, Panama City Beach, Florida took a lashing from Hurricane Earl early this morning as the storm made landfall in the Panhandle. Even though Earl is just a minimal hurricane, its winds have knocked down trees and power lines, and heavy rain has flooded streets. Good morning, I'm Vivian Brown and welcome to Weather Center. Now that Earl is over land, flooding will be a major concern in parts of Florida and Georgia. Meanwhile, in the southwest, you'll see heavy rain from Tropical Storm Isis today. Dallas will be very hot with a high temperatures expected in the triple digits, but New York City will enjoy very pleasant weather with partly cloudy skies, an afternoon high in the low 80s. First, however, we have the latest information on Earl and Isis. Here's Bruce Edwards in the Forecast Center. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we continue to monitor the progress of both the tropical systems in the southeast and southwest. Of course, the immediate concern for the continental U.S. right now is Earl, because Earl is onshore. Here's a look at the satellite picture, the infrared, and you can see the surge of moisture still strafing western Florida and wrapping around the center of Earl. The National Hurricane Center's latest advisory as of 4 a.m. Central, 5 a.m. Eastern Time had Earl centered at 30.5 north, 85.3 west, or 40 miles north-northeast of Panama City, Florida. It has weakened, but it is still a minimal hurricane. Top sustained winds 75 miles an hour, and those are mainly around Appalachia Bay and the eastern Gulf, just wrapping around with that tail of Earl whipping in. It is continuing to move to the northeast at 10, is expected to maintain that course through the course of the day today and continue to weaken. Its central pressure is 988 millibars. Now, there are hurricane warnings still in effect from Panama City, Florida to Swanee River, Florida, and south of that to Anclote Key, they have a tropical storm warning presently in effect. Now, as is usually the case with this landfalling system, you run the risk of, again, seeing a tropical system produce some severe weather, and the tornado watch is out for South Georgia, North Florida, and the coastal waters till 11 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. The winds have been strong with this system, but again, not as nasty as it might have been. Right now, wind gusts are strongest around Dothan, Alabama, and again, with the center of the system, moving right here near Crestview, Florida, you see 39, 49 mile an hour wind gust here, but generally talking about 25 to 35 mile an hour winds here. And they're coming off Appalachia Bay, again, around the east side of the storm. And that's where the strongest winds are. And that's where the strongest storm surge is. Now, we have reports around Wakulla County, Florida, there right around Appalachia Bay of a 10-foot storm surge, about 6.5 feet at Cedar Key. Also about 7 feet in Franklin County. Now, in Cedar Key, by the way, State Route 424, which is the only route on or off Cedar Key, has been closed because of high waters. So again, if you're looking for shelter in Cedar Key, you can check out the Cedar Key Lions Club. But again, they're otherwise advised to stay put until conditions subside. Might even see as much as a 3-foot surge with the tail of that system as it whips on into the Tampa Bay vicinity. Here's a look at the radar estimates of precipitation, where you see the shades of pink right in through here. And again, these are just estimates, but that's what we're talking about in the area of 12 to 15 inches of rainfall here. But we can see along shore where the system made landfall around Panama City down to Port St. Joe in the tune of 10 to 12 inches of rainfall estimated by Doppler radar. And right now, the rainfall continues to accumulate here in southeastern portions of Alabama to the tune of about 6 to 7 inches of rainfall. So it comes as no surprise that flash flood watches are posted southeastern Alabama, southern Georgia, and across all of northern and north central Florida for today. The radar cranks up, and you can see the system centered about up here, as you will note, but again, the big tail whipping around the center here, it's drawing in a lot of moisture, and it's strafing the coast all the way from the Tampa-St. Petersburg vicinity, winding its way all the way up really into South Carolina. You're picking up some of the wet weather. Here you can see the action coming in off the Gulf and swinging on in around the center. And this is where you're going to get the strongest winds, likely with this squall line coming in towards Tampa Bay. It did prompt tornado warnings around Citrus County that have expired, but you can see Tampa Bay catching wet weather. Some significant moisture offshore here, working in towards Brooksville and Ocala and Gainesville, and more heavy weather around Lake City and up towards the Okefenokee Swamp. Heavy storms around Hilton Head Island here in the Savannah River Valley as the rain continues to push on north, and the rains will be locally heavy. They're pushing into the south side of Atlanta. As you can see, southwest of Atlanta, you're catching a few heavier downpours here, and everything is moving in this direction, the whole shield of moisture, so it'll be encompassing the region throughout the course of the morning. Now, we could see 6 or more inches of rainfall before all is said and done with this system as it slowly works its way northeast. Now that's the eastern storm. We're worried about Earl, but down the road a piece we could worry about Isis. Matter of fact, Isis has now been downgraded to a tropical storm centered 60 miles north-northeast of Los Mochis, Mexico. Top sustained winds are 65 miles an hour. It's moving north at 12. Should continue that motion and slowly weaken through the course of the day. In Isis, heavy rain, damaging winds strafed the Baja California's peninsula in Mexico's mainland yesterday. Now the storm has been downgraded to a tropical storm. These are pictures from the mainland town of Los Mochis. Power lines and phone service were knocked out. Streets were flooded. One person reportedly killed in Los Cabos on the Baja Peninsula, as heavy rain is going to be the result of this system. Here is Isis down here. Here's Earl over here. And you can see the big swath of moisture here that is going to be pushing both systems along. Isis should continue to move up towards the north-northwest, and Earl is expected to move right along the eastern parts of the Carolinas before emerging back out over the ocean, perhaps in a day or so. But the result's going to be some heavy rains and some potential flooding. That's the big fear. We'll continue to update you on the situation with both tropical systems throughout the morning, and you can check us out on the internet at weather.com anytime, day or night, to get the latest. And now, speaking of the latest, Vivian has a look at your forecast.
Well, thanks, Bruce. And we want to remind everyone that this edition of Weather Center is sponsored by Lowe's. You're seeing some showers and thunderstorms this morning in parts of the Midwest, but as you move into the Northeast, it's all smooth sailing today. A look at our latest satellite picture, actually the radar, which shows improving conditions over the Northeast. I know yesterday we had storms to move through. This morning, those thunderstorms are well offshore here, off the coast, so we're looking much better in New England. Fog is a big problem, though, so you want to bear that in mind over the Connecticut River Valley down to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Visibility is less than 1/4 of a mile. Now, of course, this is all of the very heavy rain associated with Hurricane Earl. It's tropical moisture, and we're beginning to see moisture increase here with Tropical Storm Isis. We've had some thunderstorm activity in southern California and southern Arizona so far this morning. Here's a look at the upper Midwest now. We have had some lighter showers move through the downtown Chicago area, even reports of thunder in some cases. You can see on the south side of the city, the west side, so the Stevenson, the Dan Ryan will give you a little problems this morning. Please allow extra time. We've had some heavier rain and thunder reported near Rockford this morning up into the southwestern parts of Wisconsin. And from Gary, Indiana, approaching Kokomo, we've had some rain. So it's time now for Storm Watch and your tropical update, which is sponsored by the Home Depot. And we start things off by examining Hurricane Earl. Now, Earl is still classified as a hurricane, a minimal hurricane at that, with winds still about 75 miles per hour. Now, the latest coordinates have the hurricane roughly centered about 30 miles south of Albany, Georgia. Now, as you may or may not know, Hurricane Earl did make landfall during the wee hours of the morning. About 2 o'clock this morning, it came on shore around Panama City. And at that point, it was packing winds of 80 miles per hour, so
So it has been weakening, and we will likely continue to see that weakening trend continuing throughout the afternoon and tonight. So that pretty much will be the trend. Oftentimes when hurricanes do make landfall, they start to weaken because they're encountering the friction from the land. So further weakening will be likely as it continues to work its way towards the northeast. Now at this point, we still have hurricane warning zone effect around Panama City, Florida, and extending down towards the mouth of the Suwannee River. And then just south of there, we have tropical storm warnings in effect, and those run southward towards Anclote Keys in Florida. Now, as we take a look at the latest satellite radar composite, you can see a tremendous influx of moisture feeding in across the southeast. And that indeed will be a big concern that we have today. Very heavy rain and the possibility for some flooding. Now, unofficially, we've had some reports of nearly 17 inches of rain overnight right around the Panama City area. Now, the heavy rains, though, lifting northward across Georgia and across South Carolina. Still some stiff winds, too, to accompany this tropical system. And around Appalachia Bay over the last hour or so, we've had some hurricane-force winds there. And some of these tropical storm-force winds are being felt all the way back towards the coastal waters of Georgia. So some very rough weather conditions across the southeast. Heavy rain, stiff winds, and the possibility for more severe weather as we continue throughout the afternoon. Now, besides Earl, though, we have Hurricane Danielle, which continues to spin out across the open waters of the Atlantic. The good news with this, it's accelerating towards the northeast. So it's moving away from land areas. And as it continues to move to the northeast, it will likely be encountering some cooler and cooler ocean waters. So further weakening will be likely. Heading down towards the Caribbean, we're watching a tropical wave. Actually, one little disturbance working its way just south of Hispaniola. Another tropical wave, though, across the eastern Caribbean, and it has brought some scattered showers around the area, but development is not very likely at this point. Out towards the middle Atlantic, not much happening, but as we head a little bit farther towards the east, we pick up another tropical wave that is just now exiting the coastline of Africa, and we'll have to watch that for the potential for some development. In the eastern Pacific, though, we have now tropical storm Isis. This used to be a hurricane, but now it's a tropical storm. This one's been moving across the Gulf of California, and it has brought some very heavy torrential downpours, and at least one death has been attributed to this storm here, at least one death because of Isis. Right now, the winds at 55 miles per hour is moving off towards the north, and we'll have to watch out for more flooding rains and some mudslides taking place in Mexico. Further updates on Isis and Earl coming up in a moment.
Hurricane Earl moves inland, bringing heavy rain and strong winds to parts of the southeast. An update on its progress next on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by the Home Depot.
As a customer, you're so important to us that you should have the best price all the time.
Why shop somewhere else when you know every day you're going to come in and get that low price?
Home Depot doesn't have sales because we have an everyday low price.
But the competitors have to have the sales because they jack their prices up so high. But we keep our prices low every day.
I know you can feel confident coming into a Home Depot and finding the lowest price day in and day out. I know you can.
Bottom line, if we sell it and you bought it someplace else, you paid too much for it.
You would be out of your mind if you shop someplace else.
The all-new Mitsubishi Galant. Totally new styling, nicely equipped at $17,990.
Well, they're asking people to stay off the streets this morning in Panama City, Florida. The city took a lashing early today as Hurricane Earl made landfall in the Panhandle region. Earl dumped heavy rain and flooded streets. Winds from the storm knocked down trees and power lines. Good morning and welcome to Weather Center. I'm Vivian Brown. Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina all face the threat of serious flooding today as Earl moves across parts of the southeast. Meanwhile, in the southwest, you'll see heavy rain from tropical storm Isis. Chicago could see thunderstorms later today, but Philadelphia will enjoy very pleasant weather with partly cloudy skies and a high in the low to mid-80s. First, however, we have the latest information on Earl and Isis. Here's Bruce Edwards in the Forecast Center. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Vivian, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us as we continue to keep an eye on Earl and Isis. Earl hanging on like it's a Mark McGwire home run souvenir. He doesn't want to let go of hurricane status, and it is still a hurricane. It is still swirling now, but beginning to accelerate in parts of South Georgia. Earl centered right about there, actual center, but you can see once again the circulation around Earl is still substantial, and it's the winds whipping in off the Gulf of Mexico that are still at times near hurricane strength. Thus, we still have ourselves a hurricane. Earl, as of the 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern Time advisory from the Hurricane Center, was centered at 31.2 north, 84.2 west, or about 30 miles south of Albany, Georgia. It is a minimal hurricane, maximum winds at 75. It is starting to accelerate, though, moving northeast at 16. Central pressure starting to come up also, 989 millibars. Now, of course, with this hurricane over land, it is likely to weaken as we work our way through the next several hours, but it is slowly doing that, very, very slowly, as a matter of fact. We still have hurricane warnings out along the coast, Panama City to the Swanee River. However, these are likely to be taken down a little bit later on this morning as Earl continues to work rapidly northeastbound. And from Swanee River south to Ancalot Key, we still have a tropical storm warning in effect. And it's really for the tail end of Earl that tongue of moisture lashing the west coast of Florida is the one that's capable of producing some nasty winds, some rough surf, and of course possibly some severe weather. And in northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, we have a tornado watch presently in effect for that region shaded in red until 11 o'clock Eastern Time. But we'll have some information on potential tornadoes in South Carolina in just a moment. But Bay County, Florida, about 1, 2 o'clock this morning, that's Panama City vicinity. That's where Earl came ashore yesterday. And a short time ago, civil authorities met with various emergency response agencies to assess the damage from Hurricane Earl thus far this morning. And Charles Goodman, the public information officer for Bay County Commission, says that among the concern in Bay County are some missing people.
2 65-foot boats were sank in the Gulf, approximately 3 miles offshore. They rescued 3 people, and they believe 4 are missing.
And Mr. Goodman reports that they're asking people to stay off the roads in Bay County, indicating that there are a number of power lines down and roads that are closed due to flooding. Sightseers, he says, are hampering progress. They want to clean it up, and they'll get to it as quickly as possible, but you got to stay out of their way. So enjoy the day at home and assess your own situation. Maybe clean up the branches in your backyard. Here's a look at the winds, and as you can see, stronger wind gust around St. Simon's Island here on the Georgia coast, gusting to 40, and also around Valdosta, Georgia, with the center of Earl right approximately in that position here where we see the old X, but it is moving very rapidly. Now, the storm surge, again, is the worst part of the hurricane, generally speaking, and we had reports of a surge of 10 feet around Wakulla Springs and around 7 feet around Franklin County here in Appalachia Bay. As again, with that hurricane, you still get that flow coming off the Gulf, and that's where some of the strongest winds are on the southeast side of that storm itself. Here's a look at the situation on the radar. We'll give you a couple of different perspectives now of the radar. First of all, here's a look at the southeast. And once again, you can just see where Earl is centered if you look carefully in the swirls and the different colors. Right about there is the center of Earl moving rapidly. And it's the tail of the scorpion, so to speak, that is lashing central Florida right now, particularly around the Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Clearwater vicinity with some nasty storms. As you can see from Brooksville to Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Clearwater, here's your line of storms. The line is moving east. The individual storms are racing northeast about 45 to 50. Heavy storms also near Gainesville and Jacksonville. And again, you can still see some of the moisture feeding in from the south side of the storm system into Appalachia Bay. Here's a closer look at South Georgia. And once again, if you look carefully, right here, right coming across I-75 is about where we're seeing the center. Some heavy rains around Savannah, and it just batched right here around Charleston, where we have tornado watches just expiring now for coastal Beaufort County. However, it still remains in effect for eastern coastal Colleton County in South Carolina. Looks like the suspected tornado will move northward, paralleling State Route 26, reaching Highway 17 near Laurel Springs Plantation and Green Pond very, very shortly. So take cover immediately in those areas. Meanwhile, we see the rain advancing through Atlanta, Georgia, particularly now on the south side and southeast side of the city. But this whole area, the whole shield of moisture is just expanding to the north and to the northwest. So the entire metro area likely will see some rain moving in very shortly. And we could see in excess of 3 inches of rain in a few spots across across much of the southeast, and that's the real threat of Earl right now, heavy rain and flooding. There's another system in the southwest that is causing problems. That is Tropical Storm Isis, which is diminishing in intensity. Top winds are now 55 miles an hour as it continues to move to the north at 10 miles an hour. And if you look at the water vapor imagery, you can see Isis right down through here, and of course here is Earl right in through here, and the moisture flow pattern once again showing the system that's steering Earl rapidly northeast. But Isis is expected to continue on to the north and move in towards Southern California. It's already spreading some rain to San Diego, and there could be more where that came from, and that could lead to some mudslides and some flooding, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that situation. So there you have it, 2 tropical systems in both southern corners of the country. We'll have continuous updates all morning long, but you can update yourself anytime you want by checking us out on the web. Weather.com is where you'll find us. And we'll find Vivian Brown in our studio. She'll give us the latest on the rest of the nation's weather. Viv?
Well, thanks, Bruce. This edition of Weather Center is sponsored by Lowe's. Showers are disrupting your morning in parts of the Midwest, but in the Northeast, you are enjoying very pleasant conditions so far this morning, and that'll be the case all day today. Our latest radar shows we have, of course, the tropical moisture from Earl, as Bruce told you all about, and moisture increasing here across the southwest from Isis, and this will be on the increase as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours. And a few showers here across the lower Great Lakes, the upper Midwest. We've had some passing showers, the downtown Chicago area. You're getting raked with some lighter rains on the west side of the city and across the south too, so allow extra time if you are traveling across this region, say between Marseilles and Chicago. All the expressways leading into the city could give you problems, and some lighter showers over north central Indiana. Wanted to show you this radar out of Southern California because it's raining this morning in the LA basin, and we anticipate thunderstorms as we go through the afternoon, and of course with moisture coming in from Isis we could find even more.
After raking Florida with high tree-bending winds and flooding rains, Hurricane Earl has been downgraded to a tropical storm, but it continues a deluge across the southeastern United States. Good morning and welcome to the Weather Center. I'm Will Annan. We'll bring you up to date on the very latest on Earl's push in the southeast, but also Earl's rain-making twin, Tropical Storm Isis, is in Mexico but making a move on into the southwestern United States. For the very latest on both of these systems, let's go to Bruce Edwards. He's standing by in the forecast center. Bruce?
All righty, thank you, Will, and good morning, everyone. We've gotten the latest advisory now out from the National Hurricane Center, and Earl is no longer a hurricane. Earl has been downgraded to a tropical storm. We look at some of the first visible satellite pictures of Earl and crank it up and put it into motion, and you can see the system right here, centered right about there, is the approximate center of Earl, and it continues to work its way on through towards the northeast. Now, the latest advisory has Earl centered at 32.1 north, 83.3 west, or about 45 miles southeast of Macon, Georgia. It is moving northeast and has increased its forward speed. So once again, it's centered right about in through there. It is moving northeast now at about 20 miles per hour and is expected to continue to weaken, continue on that track well inland, and continue at that pace of movement through the next several hours. Now, the maximum winds have been downgraded to about 45 miles per hour, and it's expected to continue to weaken as it goes through the next several hours, working its way on towards the northeast. Central pressure is now at 989 millibars, so it's the pressures remain pretty much constant over the last 6 hours or so. Now, with a landfalling hurricane, there is that threat always of severe weather developing, and 2 severe tornado watches are presently in effect, one across North Florida and the other from the Georgia coast up through the coastal sections of the Carolinas. Now, the latter of the two, this rectangular box right here, is in effect until 5 o'clock Eastern Time. The other one is due to expire even as we speak now, with this system continuing to work through. Now, it all occurred about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this morning in that vicinity when Hurricane Earl came ashore near Panama City, Florida. The eastern panhandle is awash this morning with high water. Earl's flooding rain